Initiation by Elisabeth Haich. Turning point. One afternoon, I came home from town. The houses in our row stood in well-kept gardens. The sun was shining brightly, flowers were blooming everywhere, birds were singing joyously, and I recalled the words of Don Carlos. "Oh, my queen, in spite of everything, life is so beautiful." Yes, I felt like adding, if only my eyes were to retain their power of sight. Suddenly, I heard the voice in me asking me quite distinctly, "Are you blind already? Can't you see the world, the sky, the trees, and the flowers anymore?" "I can," I answered, looking around me. "Everything is still quite clear." And I remembered what my doctor had said to me the last time I visited him to check up on my eyesight. The right eye has become pretty dim and hazy, but you still perceive more with the other eye than most average human beings with both eyes. Well, if your eyesight is still as good as that, why do you behave so desperately, as though you had already gone blind? Why give up hope? Let us assume that you were to go blind in the second half of your life. If you start giving up hope now, while you can still see quite adequately, your whole life will be blighted by your desperation and your affliction. Quite apart from the fact that you really don't know whether you're going blind or not, maybe you will die before you go completely blind. In this case, you will have spent months, weeks, months, years of useless worry, while all the while your eyesight was clear and normal apart from a few annoying black blobs. What a waste of time to worry about events which have not yet occurred. The future? Do you really know what the future is? Events which have not yet come to pass? Why mar your pleasure in life with things that do not exist? Your present circumstances are not too bad. Enjoy life. Your chances of recovery will be much better so. Your depression will only accelerate the destructive process in your eyes. Live in the present, and remember, as soon as your spiritual blindness ceases, your corporeal eyes will regain their functions. Oh, how true were the words of this sacred voice. In the moments of deepest despair, I felt that the black spots in my eyes showed up my interior darkness, my spiritual blindness. But how on earth is one to cure spiritual blindness? For this was the hub of my problems, the fact that I felt completely blind in the face of the secrets of life and death. I was enclosed in darkness, for I sensed death everywhere and could not grasp the meaning of life. I desired to become seeing in quotes. It was my greatest wish, but how? The voice replied, "Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." I did not understand those words at the time, but I wanted to obey them. I tried breathing deeply and calmly and concentrating on the present. It was very hard. The black spots kept dancing in front of my eyes and reminding me of my misery. But I tried again and again, and I reached the point where I felt happy and content again. Indeed, I felt I had to be happy, for my eyes would benefit from my state of mind. I wanted to help myself. I had to be happy. I had to enjoy myself. I began to think about future occupations, which would afford me constant pleasure. My husband was very much engrossed in his job. He was a construction engineer, and I rarely saw him except at meals. A thought flashed through my mind. A baby. How long have I wished for a baby? What greater joy could I expect? And I would not be alone all the time. I opened my spirit to the anonymous being which was waiting somewhere to become my child. And the being heard my cry. During my pregnancy, the discharges slowly disappeared from my eyes, and when my confinement came, I had completely forgotten that I had ever had any trouble at all. My memories of lying in the operating theater of a sanatorium and waking up after an anesthetic, completely exhausted, seem like a long-forgotten dream. I find myself in a form of ecstasy, yet I hear a sound which flashes through me like lightning and brings me back to my senses. It is a cry, not like the cry of a newborn child, but more like the roar of a lion. It is alive. The thought grips me, and a great feeling of gratitude overwhelms me. I open my eyes. A face appears above me, and I hear a voice saying, "A boy, a beautiful, healthy boy." I catch sight of a little round head and a fat, rosy body. Is that my child? I ask myself as I gaze at it expectantly. I feel that only its body is my child, otherwise it is an independent being I know has come into being as our child. Then for the first time in my life, then for the first time in its life, the baby lies in a crib, swathed in human vestments, and gazes wide-eyed at the world. My mother and father have already arrived, waiting to welcome my child and myself after this terrible fight for life. I am at the end of my tether. My heart is hardly beating after my great loss of blood, but the child is alive. After this strenuous experience, my convalescence was very slow. For a long time I felt very weak, very susceptible to any form of light. The discharges reappeared, and the vitreous humor in my right eye became opaque again. Thick clouds of a sort of fog covered my vision in this eye, yet I never got around to bothering seriously about my eyesight. There was my child. I spent all my time in its presence, and when it smiled at me and embraced me with its podgy little arms, the weight and pressure of my worries seemed far away. The years raced by. My little boy developed magnificently and was admired by everyone for his big blue eyes, which radiated so much love and warmth. He was a very precious child. When he was 4, a scene of my own childhood was reenacted. My child showed me a picture book and asked me the meaning of certain letters. I explained them in detail. The child regarded the letters attentively and suddenly cried, "Mother, that means bull, doesn't it?" I took it on my lap and kissed it again, and then I explained all the other letters. It did not have to learn them. It seemed as if it only had to recall them. We spent the summer together in our family villa near the lake. In fact, a whole series of wonderful summers. My brother and my younger sister invited lots of friends who sometimes stayed at our place for weeks on end. We played croquet, rowed, and swam, and in the evenings we used to play chamber music or play games or dance on the terrace. It was a healthy, happy life. My eyes did not bother me very much during this time. After the birth of my child, I spent some months at the seaside. The secret sources of energy of the sea completely renewed me. I returned home in excellent health and very much more able to stand light. I started drawing and painting again, and even took up wood carving. This artistic occupation afforded me great pleasure. On the surface, everything seemed in order. Nevertheless, I was not happy. I did not know why. An inner discontentment grew in me until I could not disregard it any more. One night, after I had experienced once again the greatest fulfillment of earthly love and unity, instead of falling peacefully asleep, I sat on the side of my bed for a long time, brooding over my problems in abject despair. I cried and I sobbed, and in the darkness of that night, I began to examine myself cruelly in order to find out why I was so unhappy, so discontented. I had everything necessary to make a human being happy. From where could my misery originate? This question seemed to call forth the answer. From the depths of my subconscious, the reasons began to ascend and gain consciousness. I was searching for a human being who was my other half, my complement. Love is the revelation of a power which forces two complementary halves to unite. In fact, the subconscious will to unite is commonly known as love. I had experienced this union. I had attained the supreme fulfillment of body and soul, and was not happy, and became more and more unhappy after each occasion. I sat there in the dark and questioned myself in despair. Why can't I be happy? I desired an answer and reflected intently, and then I realized that the joy of union was not what I expected. I had searched for some sort of fulfillment subconsciously, and having found nothing else, I believed physical love to be this fulfillment. Having experienced it, I had to admit that it was not what I had expected. After experiencing the supreme form of physical unity, I was compelled to see and realize that I was looking for something else. But what? I was searching for fulfillment of an eternal nature, a real union which remains. I was searching for a union in which the identity of myself and that of my lover become one and the same thing. I desired to participate in his soul, his thoughts, his whole being. I wanted to become him, but I did not desire what physical unity had brought me. This physical union is a desperate attempt to become one being. Every fiber and muscle is strained to the highest pitch, and in the moment when both believe that they have achieved fulfillment, they fall apart without ever attaining union. In the darkness, a picture of my childhood appeared in front of me. I remembered sitting at the family table and trying to bring together two little grease spots swimming on top of my bowl of soup. Yes, in exactly the same way as I had tried to unite those two grease spots years ago, I now wanted to make one being out of two souls. Out of two selves, I wanted to create a single one. But that is impossible. In love, each lover craves to come together with the other. Yet their craving is merely a physical desire, and they strain against each other in despair. Everybody can observe how two lovers press their hearts together in their fervent embrace. They seem to be compelled to unite their hearts, to be united in their heart. But they fail. Why? Their bodies stand between them. The resistance of the body prevents the union. How strange that I should desire to become one single being with my lover in body, and that the body itself should bar my way. Does my body desire this union? Can the body desire anything which is impossible by reason of the very existence of the body? No, the body cannot carry within itself a wish which cannot be fulfilled by reason of its own presence. Who and what, therefore, desires this supreme union? It can only be the immaterial spirit, the self. And why do I desire this union? Why do I want something which is impossible? I want it because I know that only through this complete concord, this supreme union, will I find satisfaction, and only in this state of mind will I achieve final happiness. This happiness that I've been searching for since I began to live. But why do I search for something which is impossible to attain? I do it solely because I feel certain that somehow it is possible, and that somehow this possibility exists. Only I don't know how. What impedes my progress towards my aim? The body. The body stands between us. Therefore, this possibility might exist, but only in a bodiless condition. I long for this lost union. I once knew it somewhere and somehow, but I have lost it. Could it be possible that I lived in an immaterial state a long time ago, and that, having been born into this body, I fell out of this spiritual harmony? Is it possible that I once lived in a world of complete unison, a world without corporeal elements, where I lived in a bodiless condition? Having got this far in the logical sequence of my thoughts, I began to feel very afraid. A bodiless state in a world without corporeal elements. Therefore, in another world? In the hereafter? Could it be possible that this other world really exists? A world in which I had never believed, and which I had always regarded as a necessary invention of a religious nature, used to enforce a moral standard of living among primitive people with promises of heaven and warnings of hell. It is my body alone which exists in our earthly world, and myself which is cognizant of this impossible union of the flesh, and which desires to reinstitute it. Does it belong to eternity? If that is so, all human beings originate in another world. If that is so, all human beings originate in another world where this union is reality, and have fallen out of it into this world, into the material body and an earthly world. Yet the craving for our former happiness lies in us, in our soul, which belongs to this other world. And again we err by trying to attain this happiness, this unity in our body, and with the aid of our inherent bodily sexuality. Yet it is the body which itself impedes our success. Oh, now I realize what is meant by the fall from paradise. Therefore, I can only reach the happiness I desire in another world, in paradise. As I cannot force this other world into my own material world, I will strive to get to know this other world where my eternal happiness resides. But how? Empty words are of no use to me. I want reality. I want concrete facts. This night was the turning point of my life. I realized that sex is the greatest of all frauds. Nature promises us a wonderful event, the supreme heights of joy, the embodiment of fulfillment, yet she robs us of our powers. And when we believe that we have reached the limits of fulfillment, we fall lower than ever before. We lose a tremendous lot of energy and we feel as poor as beggars after the event. An old Latin proverb mentions that both humans and animals feel depressed after physical union. I was looking for external, ever-present sublimity, not what sex can give. What is left of sexual pleasure in the morning? Nothing, except possibly great fatigue. And this state of affairs is to repeat itself forever? What else is it but a continuous struggle for unattainable union? Never will a human being achieve the fulfillment of his strivings. Never can he delve into true concord where he can stay forever. Formerly, a certain force existed, the power of attraction, which brought together two beings in their search for each other. Later on, this force is appeased, emptiness remains, and each is left alone, desperately alone, eternally alone. I realized at last, this was not the aim of my quest. And if I was not looking for this, if sex had deceived me, I would refuse to go on in this way. I would refuse to let myself be deceived. Sex can satisfy only the body, but never the soul, the self. Never could sexual satisfaction appease that desire. What now? I must find this happiness. I must search for an answer to my questions. I cannot stand still. I must go forward, but where to? If happiness lies in the other world, I will search for it in the other world. And so I set out to find my happiness and fulfillment where I hope to discover it in the other world. And that's the end of that chapter. And I'm so sorry that there was a gap in there, because I'm reading this off of my laptop, and I clicked to scroll down a bit, and I lost where I was. I'm sorry, I hope that wasn't too disruptive. Anyway, I'll do better, and till soon.